In 1763, Britain won the French and Indian War and gained vast new lands in North America. But the war left Britain and the king deeply in debt. To recover money, the king decided the colonies should help pay for the war, as well as the defense and the governing costs of the colonies. This marked a major shift in policy. Britain would now tax the colonies directly to raise revenue, starting with one of the most valuable and everyday staples of colonial life: sugar. The Sugar Act of 1764 gave British officials strict new powers to enforce trade laws, and it imposed new taxes on several everyday imports such as wine and coffee. The act allowed British soldiers to board ships and seize goods, as well as try smugglers in courts without juries. Also, punishment for breaking the trade laws were harsher. Although the act lowered the already existing molasses and sugar tax, it increased its focus on collecting it through stricter enforcement. This meant colonists could no longer easily avoid paying the tax. For years, to avoid paying them, smuggling was common and widespread. And when smugglers were caught, local juries often refused to convict them, infuriating the king. Why did Britain focus on taxing sugar and molasses? They were central to colonial life and imported in large amounts, making them an easy target for taxation. Colonists used sugar daily, but molasses was even more important. It fueled New England's rum industry, which became one of the colony's biggest industries. Rum was the most popular distilled drink in the American colonies. By taxing molasses, the king aimed to tap into this profitable and widespread trade. Colonists saw the Sugar Act of 1764 as both an economic burden and a political threat to their rights. For years, many merchants had smuggled goods to avoid taxes, and local juries often refused to convict them when they were caught. The Sugar Act changed this system by sending smuggling cases to Vice Admiralty courts, where Crown-appointed judges, not local juries, decided if a smuggler was guilty. Because these judges worked for the king, meant that the smugglers would not have a chance in court and would always be found guilty. Colonists believed this violated their right to a fair trial. Even more troubling, the act placed taxes directly on imports without the colonists' approval or their direct benefit. Many argued the king had no authority to tax them without their consent. They believed only their elected colonial assemblies had that power. To colonists, the Sugar Act was proof of taxation without representation. Lastly, the act had a painful impact on the economy and the way of life for many colonists. The law hit New England especially hard, since its economy relied heavily on molasses and rum. With stricter enforcement, smuggling grew riskier, profits declined, and merchants and shipowners' livelihoods were harmed. It also made the most popular drink, rum, more expensive for all colonists. The Sugar Act made many colonists fear that this was only the start of heavier taxes and tighter control from Britain. This anger and distrust brought people together, leading them to write pamphlets, sign petitions, and give speeches against the law. While the protests were small compared to later events, they marked an early step in resistance. The Crown would later end the act because it hurt trade and was hard to enforce. But instead of stopping, the king placed new taxes such as the Stamp Act and Townshend Acts on the colonists. These convinced many colonists that the king would keep ignoring their rights, pushing them to unite and resist, and closer to a revolution.